No, I want the other side, man.
Boom! I started the recording. So live from the apocalypse. The ever unpredictable state of the game. I am your host, the Kyle Mooney of music criticism. Dano. Below in the box is the Tim Meadows of Target, K Diggy. We have a special guest. Much like Steve Martin, he is the man with two brains, Kyle Gervais.
Tis
known
I.
For his group KGFREEZE, known for 7 to 10 other groups. He's been playing music since he was, 16 or so? In bands and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, probably even before that. I think I was in like a talent show in 5th grade, I want to say, where I lip sang a song and then someone asked me to join their band. So, got to start somewhere.
It's been going. So the two brains, Kyle is in one area a heck of a risk taker in terms of musicianship and making music and making albums. He's always striving in different directions and making people uncomfortable with his choices.
Try to.
On the other end, he is a ballsy critic of music as well. That is the brain we will be calling on. This is a guy who reviewed his friend and was like, "It's not good enough." It's great. So,
And we're still friends.
Because people need that shit. People they'll pretend in public they don't, but they do. They do. So
Feedback's important.
Yeah. I mean, and not everybody's going to give it to you straight. So let me see here. We're talking about King Krule's Man Alive. This is a pet project for me and K Diggy. This is one of the 2 or 3 first albums we talking about when we were talking about doing this. I just said talking about a lot, but the word choice. And we wanted to find a cool place to do this, like be in a park with birds flying and shit like that. And the apocalypse happened, right? But this album became even more relevant to me during that initial period. So I knew if we were going to do it, it had to be special. So we had to bring in a little bit of the freeze to the summertime. We had to freeze the summertime.
Get a guess.
So, Kyle, we've experienced this album before. Was this your first time?
It was. To be completely honest, it was probably my first deep dive into King Krule. I know a friend of mine, maybe like 6-7 years ago, had put something out on Facebook or somewhere and said like, King Krule, this guy sucks, overrated, totally, And I was like, well, if he hates him, I got to check it out. So I checked it out and I was like, hey, I understand what he's going for, but I don't think my buddy did. I think my buddy probably saw a good review and then was like, I'm going to be into this. And
I mean, the weird part is like when the Ooze came out, that was when I first heard about it, right? Because the Ooze got a lot of love. He won like a Mercury Award. He won some UK stuff for this. But if you look at where he charts all over the damn world. He charts in Switzerland, he charts in Australia. He is one of those Taster's Choice, like critic darlings people. And when the Ooze came out, I was like, man, I don't want to. And then I listened to it and I was like, you know what? This is good. I don't think it's as good as everyone thinks. That was the game I played. But then Man Alive came out and it all clicked into place for me. This was the album that brought his catalog together in my mind to where I understood what he was going for.
Working backwards, because I mean, I had obviously seen a lot of stuff about the Ooze, but I do feel like Man Alive is quite a bit more immediate and less repetitive. Because the Ooze, like, it's definitely builds its own world, but then it stays in that world for a very long time.
Good way to put it, yeah.
That is fair. That is fair. So, Kyle, how was your experience with Man Alive?
I very much enjoyed it. There's a couple tracks on it that I thought like really stuck out. There's not a lot of light in the King Krule world.
No.
It's pretty gray,
No.
pretty dreary. But then when there's like, something like Omen, like the beat on that is like, oh, where did this come from? And Cellular too is just like,
you seen the video with
the videos I was very surprised by.
Oh, it's very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. Did you see the video, Keith?
No, I haven't checked out the video.
But yeah, no, he has a bunch of crazy videos. He has like a live concert video where it's him and his band in space outfits, and they're on like a fake moon, and they just play for like a half hour.
Dude loves the moon.
It's great.
Dude loves the moon.
So, yeah, for first impressions of the album, that was good. Mr. Ron, how was revisiting this for you?
I mean, I don't think I really ever left. Like, I've been listening to it constantly for the past couple of months.
I'm with you.
But I mean, I listened now when I listen for research, when researching for the show, like I listen more about, I listen more for like, I guess you could say, I listened in ways that I hadn't listened to the album beforehand. So I was able to pick up on details that I had missed in the previous listens.
Right. So, and yeah, it was interesting what stuck out to me. What especially stuck out to me was the back end of it.
Mm.
That this is like really strong in terms of how it closes. Those last three songs, I mean, when you get to, is it Endless Ships? Is that what it is? What is it? Oh, yeah. So I got it here. Yeah, Underclass, Energy Fleets, Please Complete Thee. Those last three, that is a heck of a way to end an album.
Mm-hmm.
That really stuck out to me. I think, Kyle, you're right that like there's points in this album that are drifty and vibey that you just kind of float through.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you asked me how I felt about The Dream or Airport Antennal Airplane, I'm not sure I could give you a solid answer. Yeah, I've heard them 1,000 times, but I just exist there.
Yep.
But when you get to those songs that stick out and really Theme for the Cross and stuff, I mean, you're really there. And one of the reasons I was excited about Man Alive right off the bat, and me and Kay talked about this, the lyrics are something I want to dig into.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself reading the lyrics and being like, wow.
Yeah.
I gotta go. I think I might go right into that one. Maybe here we go. Please complete thee. Please complete me. It must be the answer. Everything just seems to be numbness around. Why aren't you near me? What stars are you under? If only I could hear from you right now. Did your mind ever clear me? Has your faith found a pastor, or am I still in shapes in the clouds?
Whew.
And so he's not fucking with you. He's not, you know what I mean? This isn't like, we're gonna party tonight, or I'm sad. Because you can testify, Kyle, we've talked about this. Indie music is full of sad people who are trying artistically to be sad.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, sad colors are cool.
Yep.
Always have been.
Yep.
So there's real honest people like Nick Drake who are about to kill himself, and then there's people who just kind of prefer painting in those colors.
Yeah, I think if there's, I mean, coming to it fresh, the two immediate comparisons that I drew were Damon Albarn, just as far as the British, there's a swagger to it. There's a kind of like common man, but beyond and able to have some introspection. But then also like tricky, where
have to be tricky.
like it's just like he understands the mood, but it's that's just the setting for the poetry that he's able to drop. And some of the stuff does seem like tossed off here and there, but when he goes in, he goes in. Can't deny it.
Yeah. I mean, Damon Albarn, of course, from Blur and from Gorillaz. Really, like you said, common man stuff. Very much like the anti-Gallagher Brothers vibe. But he was also
not looking to save the world.
No, he was also great at mood setting. Like Gorillaz is its own mood, and he was able to incorporate cool stuff into that. Blur is a separate mood. Yeah. And he's been able to maintain those two without really crossing them. And he's really good at setting moods. So it's a good comparison. Tricky. Is it fair to say if I asked you the two best known trip hop acts, would you say it's Tricky and Portishead? Is that fair? Is there more?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
To the general populace, right?
Right.
Not a dive guy on trip hop or whatever. But
I think Portishead's probably comes to mind. Portishead or Massive Attack, but even Massive Attack has got that tricky factor already.
Yeah, I think Tricky is like the godfather of that shit, of trip hop and incorporating hip hop, making it moody and weird and like Radioheading it. So if anybody who hasn't heard that, do it. But yeah, the other lyrical moment that is pretty fantastic, pretty out there. Underclass. I was doing some good. I was keeping clean, kept my head up above your intimacy, or steadily your putrid ooze would swallow me. Is it meant to be? And find me those big sad eyes. I lay down on the empty streets. The roads seem to lead me to you.
Oh man.
The scariest Hallmark card you've ever sent in your life.
Yeah, man.
For the person you hate.
Not shying away from it.
You taken a piece of me, Karen.
Can't escape you.
But
well, and it's funny too because like even like that one, because the other comparison that came to mind, and it made me go into the Wikipedia to find out like who were the players, what was the personnel on the album, because I was driving and listening to the Ooze, and every time the sax would come in, I was like, is he playing the sax? Is he the sax player? Like, if he's the sax player, this makes it 10 times cooler. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like a Tom Waitsy like vibe,
Definitely.
like dark club, very smoky. Like he's wearing the emotions on the sleeve, getting a little gross here and there, and that's part of the realness of the whole picture.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about the realness, and I think you'll agree with me, Diggy. I think that a lot of music, especially rock music or hip hop, anything really, when it's guys driving the bus, the breakup songs are very one-sided. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is. And they're usually one note types of things, you know what I mean?
For sure.
As a Drake aficionado, there's a lot missing in those pictures, right? Like I'm gonna stop making fun of Drake. I've been making fun of Drake like once an episode.
Get Drake's side of things a lot of the time.
Yep, rolling the six with his woes, man. And there's a rock guy I really like, Kyle Kraft, and he does a lot of hard charging breakup songs. But it's like, she broke my heart. I'm like, her too? Really?
Yeah.
And the difference with King Krule is his stuff is always pointed at himself.
Yeah.
He's always really mad at himself.
Definitely. And I think that the music has an element of like the dude obviously knows what he's doing, as far as the kind of beats that he's building and the chords that he's going for, but it also has an element of unrefined and unprofessional, you know what I mean? Like untrained,
Right.
like, which kind of gives that authentic feeling of what, you know what I mean, what the lyrics are trying to get across with that backdrop, like kind of the chords, and there's an ugliness to them that isn't right but absolutely works.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that listening to the album this week, like, I recognize the different vocal variations that he has on a lot of songs. Like, I think a lot of artists, like, they focus on, you know, their lyrics and what they're singing, but they don't pay too much attention onto how they're singing it. And I think when I listen to Archie, who's the lead singer of King Krule, I can hear a lot of attention paid to how he specifically sung songs. So not all of his songs he doesn't sing every song the same. Like, he put thought into how he delivers the lyrics, and I think that kind of helps enhance what he's singing.
When he digs in and like gets to that really like gross breaking point, it's ugly. It like and it's supposed to be, you know, that like that's why it's so effective. He goes past what sounds quote unquote good. Yeah. And you can feel it.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this quote a while ago, but there was an interviewer who was talking to Currency and said, you know, you're off beat a lot of times. And he said, I'm so off beat, I'm back on the beat a little bit though. It's my own beat, you know, like, and that's a real thing. Like, some people are they have a gross voice or a weird voice, but they manipulate it so well that it's an incredible voice. Because it's a voice you don't get to hear very often.
No.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean,
go ahead. Diggy.
I was gonna say, like, what stuck out to me, what really hooked me to King Krule was that his voice, it just sounded 3D to me, and it just sounded like there was a lot of texture to it in a way that you don't hear a lot of 3D voices in music today.
Yep. And it makes you want to dig in. Like, I started listening, like when I dived in, I just started listening and I was like, okay, I got to bring up the lyrics. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta see what he's saying, because it, like, sometimes it's just and then sometimes the accents, and then he's in your face, and it's like, what is he saying?
It is weirdly Dylan-esque in that sense.
Yeah.
Do you remember? The rap on Dylan has always been like, you can't understand what he's saying, and he's mumbling, and it's awful. And then he released this album of standards where you could hear crystal clear every word he said. And I felt like it was the biggest fuck you of all time. You know, those last 10 years, fuck you.
I can do whatever I want.
Could have been doing it. I do what I want to, Dylan. Like, that's his life. And you just got to trust him with his instrument. It's one of these arguments I have with my mom all the time, because she's consumed with like great voices. She's like, Bob Dylan has a terrible voice. I'm like, okay. She's like, but I like his stuff when it's sung by like Joan Baez.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom, not only do I not listen to Joan Baez, you don't listen to Joan Baez. So who are you kidding? These people with perfect voices, they have boring voices, dude.
Yeah.
Right.
Their voices, there's nothing in there, right?
Well,
Like,
so when you had mentioned watching the videos, and based on what I knew about King Krule, I was very surprised to see that a lot of the videos had 1 million or more views. And I was also very surprised to hear about the charting, because it is kind of like musicians or artists' music. It's for people who aren't necessarily looking to listen to something to get comfort or entertainment from, but are more looking to or have the ability to appreciate what he's doing. Which, I mean, it doesn't, I don't think that there's no commercial prospects to it, but there's like, if you were to ask me what like a hook was on the album, I couldn't tell you straight off. You know what I mean? Like, but there's a lot of lines and a lot of melodies that are very memorable. Like, it's just like, you know what I mean?
I mean, with like I told you, I was really consumed with this album, and then COVID-19 hit, right? And there was that weird in between time where things weren't closed, but they were getting there. People were scared. So I was walking through work as this barren wasteland, headphones in, and all I could hear was such a funny life. Such a funny life. And I was just like, it is, Archie. It fucking is. Like he had me.
But like you had said, it's like it was your soundtrack to this whole pandemic, and it really does work more as like a soundtrack or like a backdrop for, you know what I mean, with him kind of like telepathically reading your mind, versus like, I'm gonna listen to this song because I can't wait to sing along and bob my head to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know if you're going to dive into the comparison, but I was very much like, where's the comparison here? I'm very, very interested in where you're going.
What are you talking about?
The tie to the other artist we were researching.
Oh, well, so let's get into some of the questions.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So number one, what genre is King Krule in? Do we know? Wikey lists jazz fusion, post-punk, hip-hop, electronic, indie rock.
For me, like I had to think about this. I don't think he's rock, because I mean I don't know what rock is nowadays, but to me he's very similar to Frank Ocean and the James Blake. That's the kind of space that I put him in, particularly because, you know, his mood is very atmospheric, and I mean I see a lot of similarities between him and Frank Ocean. So whatever genre of music Frank Ocean is considered, even I mean actually Frank Ocean's considered R&B. I could see a world where this could be considered R&B in a lot of ways as well, in some ways, fashions.
Yeah. My answer on this is that really every album is a different genre. 6 Feet Beneath the Moon is indie rock. It's more
that sounded much more straight rock based, or indie rock based on the dabbling I did.
I honestly think the Ooze is a jazz album. I think it's kind of weird punk acid jazz kind of stuff. It's just jazz is present all the time, and like it's when you say King Krule, I'm gonna hear him saying Lonely Blue. Like it's just a powerfully, beautifully jazz moment that like connects him to Billie Holiday in some strange way. Like it's so beautiful and painful, and it's great. But that being said, what genre is Man Alive?
Yeah, I think it is that kind of like crossway point between, and I don't know if it's necessarily indie rock or just like indie, experimental, electronic, you know, like in that realm of James Blake, but a little less heavy in the like beat side of things. But that jazz is there, and I think that's what I mean when I say like it's unrefined or not quite right. Is that there's no traditional rules that he's necessarily following, which is what makes it dip into jazz. It's just kind of like, you know, like the chords are very sparse, and the that saxophone every time it comes in, it's like money.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so hard to classify because I think his voice is so versatile. You know what I mean? So it can. I mean, if you listen to the first half, it seems the first half of Man Alive, it seems more rockish, particularly when what's the song? Stoned Again.
Stoned Again, yep.
Yeah, which was Stoned Again's my favorite on the album. But after Stoned Again, you can see him moving more to atmospheric. But so the beat or the vibe changes, but his voice also changes as well. So I mean, it's really hard to classify or pin down exactly what it is.
Whew, yeah, I mean, I think, and I'll cover number 3 by talking about your James Blake comparison, which the interesting part is, yes, he has that kind of painful, poetic stuff, but James Blake, I kind of feel like is always in that tone, like James Blake is you know, like the chipmunk R&B sample. He's the walking chipmunk R&B sample. Like, producers can't wait to clip and chop that. They're just gonna love it. But King Krule can get really gnarly and loud and punkish.
Oh yeah.
But he has this swagger that he just pulls out too. Like sometimes he'll just drop some verse with a crazy cadence that's just like, okay, you're not just like throwing lines out randomly. Like there's a purpose here.
Right. Now, number 4 is my favorite question of the questions. If Harry Styles was starring in a fun pop music movie, would King Krule be the villain?
I don't know if he'd be the villain as much as like the guy who lives underneath the bridge.
Yeah.
King Krule is his own like showcase, right?
He seems like, I think, what's the actor's name? Ed Norton, like the kind of dark sidekick type of guy that you don't quite know his intentions, but
he comes across like him in his journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
you know
like,
what I mean?
Harry Styles is singing like Watermelon Sugar High, and he's bopping, and he walks by, he hears something weird. He looks over, and King Krule's singing like Super Marche or something, and just kind of, you know, mumbling sadly in the shadow.
He offers him some like, you know, special key or something to get him along on his journey. I just want the sidekick. Totally, I hear it.
Him as like the Wario of like this kind of empire. Like there's a lot of like desperate people, like desperately trying to chart and then desperately trying to chart again once they've charted, and like just standing in vicious line, you know, for the best producers, beats, guests. And what was that quote from that Guardian article when they told him that Beyonce had posted his song Easy Easy off 6 feet whatever the moon, and he said, he just kind of shrugged and was like, yeah, I can see how she'd like that. Back to drinking at a South London bar. Just who gives a fuck, you know?
But wouldn't he have been like 19 or something at the time?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, because
he says he's been playing music since he was 8. He was already a 10-year fucking vet at 19.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
Mexican boxers that's been fighting since he was, you know, 8, and just grinds, you know.
I mean, he's got 3 albums by the time, I think he's 23, 24 right now. I mean, 3 albums by your 23, 24th age.
He's got one under his own name.
Yeah.
He's got 4. He's got one under his own name. He's got a bunch of EPs too.
Yeah.
And that's
I mean,
11.
I was surprised to find out that he was that young.
Yeah, he's 25 right now, isn't he?
oh, it's 25 now?
Yeah.
Wow.
The sound made me think that he was older, and the like, I know you mentioned like the indie factor, and I just think that like that realm is not necessarily where a lot of younger people hang out in or navigate. And he's extremely unique, definitely doing his own thing and carving his own path.
Number 5, I think, is a good way to bring this together. If this album is Krule's House of Balloons, do you project him running into the same problems Weeknd did with transitioning his sound into the pop phase, if it catches on to that level? No.
I don't think that's his goal.
Right. And I mean, I think his voice is so versatile. I think if he does go into a pop phase, it's going to be through the electronica genre. I mean, I think his voice is so versatile. Like he can adapt to any type of genre that fits him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think that he wants to. I think Weeknd, is it Weeknd or Weekend? I try to pronounce that correctly. Weeknd, like Weeknd. Weeknd. He specifically, he was very ambitious from the gate. You could tell that he wanted to be a pop star, and so he was just looking for his avenue to get to pop superstardom, which he has reached. Yeah, I agree with Kai. I don't think that that's his necessary goal to be one of the biggest artists on earth.
I think with the Weeknd, and as far as the ambition that he had, and I think the issue the problem that he ran into was that he's like a scumbag, and how do you make that scumbag character commercial? And he found that magic ingredient by working with people like Max Martin and other like giant pop producers, and then finding this interesting middle ground of being a scumbag that you happen to sing along with.
Right.
But he's also shooting for stadiums and, you know what I mean, like hits and stuff. I wouldn't want to see King Krule in a stadium. I would want to see him in, you know what I mean, like a certain cap sort of room with only so many people there, and being able to kind of like feel him and see him, like as far as you said, with like the dynamics of his voice and stuff. Like I wouldn't want to hear the echo of it in some arena. I would want to be able to know that it's coming right from him, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's I think the common thing that I thought of was when you said there's a lot of people who like just kind of build their own skills out of nowhere, unrefined, unschooled. They just kind of sharpen their swords alone and kind of explode into the world. And when House of Balloons came out, it had the feeling of like, this is exactly how not to do it. This is not how you make an R&B album. This is not you typically
for the time
you
good point.
You balance it. You get the love songs, you bring the flowers to the door. 2 tracks later, you're like, I'm sorry, that was your sister, I got needs. And then it goes through the cycle, you know. And he was just like, no, come to my condo, I've got drugs. And that was everything. And like, I'm gonna make it work because I've got a different thing than you all do. And he cracked a different code, and he changed everything about R&B. And I was just wondering, if he were to blow up, would there be that effect? Would people be like, this is how you be sad, I like this, I'm gonna be sad like this?
I mean, you have to wonder if I think the environment and kind of like climate within the music industry and the world kind of decides a lot of stuff, like what works right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are people like itching to buy? I cannot imagine, despite the fact that Lady Gaga put out an album last weekend, that's doing all that well.
It's a big pop album too. It's like a big dance pop album. I just don't know where.
Is anyone in the mood for a big dance pop album right now?
I got Fetch the Bolt Cutters. That's what I. You know what I mean? Like that's
homemade sounds like I'm stuck at home, like because I am, sort of thing. Like
my life and thinking about it. Like that's honestly what people are doing. So yeah, this is a quarantine pick for sure. The fun thing to do was look at the difference in tone in people that had to cover this. If you looked at America, like American, I don't know why, but I looked at the Entertainment Weekly review of this.
They give it like a C+ or something.
Right face, you're making the right face. That is true. It is like going on a bender, looking at an Entertainment Weekly review. But they were just like, there's too much sad. This is bad. They were like, they gave it a B. It was a confused B. They gave it a letter grade of B. They were like, it's fine, but get it away from me. You know, it was that kind of thing.
But I think a publication like that is the readers that are going to be looking at that review and might see an A or an A+ are going to be like, I'm going to like this. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is going to be good. And it's more than that. It's another level. It's like, yeah, it's be going to see a Fellini film and hoping that you're going to get a blockbuster. You know what I mean? Like, you got to know what you're getting into.
But if you look at how The Guardian talked about it, it was totally different in tone than like the American reviews of like, don't kill yourself, but enjoy this album. It's a paragraph that's like, even the sedative Alone Omen 3, written about finding empowerment in depression, feels joyous. A patchwork of sampled voices and field recordings add to Man Alive's pleasantly dazed atmosphere. On the record, which at 40 minutes is his shortest so far, there is a sense that something inside him is thawing. He says, I see a beauty in everything that I knew was always there, but I can understand it a lot more now. I really like the beauty in the lows, the highs, the hatred, and the love. I appreciate humanity, the people around me, and conversation. I'm more open, accepting, and interested.
Yeah, I think that Man Alive, at least compared to the Ooze, does have a little bit more, like I had mentioned, there's not a lot of light in King Krule's world, but it's obvious that it's not so stuck in a particular cycle and sound of things. Like, I had reached, I don't know, track 17 or 18, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, it's vibey, it's cool, but like, what did we need another one? You know what I mean? Like, and Man Alive's definitely got more purpose. The other thing was that going and watching the videos after listening to the record a couple times, the videos make the songs sound like just segments of songs. Like, you're like, that's it? Where's the other 2 minutes? Like, I could live in this world. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird that having a visual makes it fly by so quickly. But even the album, like, it sounds like an idea and a developed idea, but one that doesn't overstay its welcome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're not sure whether to check it out, just pull up the Alone Omen 3 video and tell me if you're not interested by the end of the video. You know, that's were you going to say something, Mr. Diggy?
Oh, no. I was agreeing. I was agreeing with what he's saying, yeah.
So some more information that I thought was really interesting. His mother, Rachel, a costume designer and artist, doubles as his manager. He eventually signed with XL Recordings and Adele's management company.
Wow.
His brother, Jack, does his album art, while his dad, Adam, an art director, contributed spoken word on the Ooze and paintings for the new record, the title of which was pilfered from the boy's musician uncle, whose images of pylons also adorn the inlay. I just thought it was cool that, like, his family is just all involved in the project. And it's just it's still that very like down home artist thing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I think that also helps to have that kind of background and family that has worked in the arts, because then I think your goals are a little different. You know what I mean? I don't think he's coming in being like, and you know, maybe in the back of his mind, it's on some level, it is like, hey, maybe I'll get a number one someday. But you know that's not the reason he's doing it. You know, like.
And he's got like a cult apparently. I haven't read these things, but they say the YouTube comments are bananas.
Out of control.
There were people that were like, listening to King Krule, you can see the moon, or just like just really wild stuff.
Religiously devoted.
It's interesting, man. I was gonna talk about the weird conversation with my wife that I sent you guys.
Yeah.
I was very intrigued by her comparison, because I was trying to find it.
It's so it was like 11:40 at night, close to midnight, like a Friday, and I had been up since 5:40 in the morning, and I decided I'm not going to bed until she's done with what she's doing, right? Like fuck it. So, and she's not really watching the TV, so I'm like, let's do research. And I'm just banging away at King Krule videos. And I was like, honey, you see the one where he was burning at the stake? And she was like, yeah, man, they kind of all sound the same. Like, and I was like, do you think Trent Reznor sounds the same? She was like, yeah, kind of. I was like, okay, well, I think of it as like a magical orgy of different sounds. And so it's always a magical orgy of different sounds, but it's always a slightly different one with different levels of mixtures. So it's always interesting to me.
I think it is a lot of the same elements, but it's the way that he uses those elements.
Yeah.
And what's funny was when I was on YouTube, I clicked on something and it brought me to a Nine Inch Nails playlist, and I was like, "What is this?" So it was weird that you had mentioned Trent Reznor, she had, and then I was like, "I don't hear the Nine Inch Nails," but for whatever reason, there is some sort of similarity, or
well, I did dig back into the Downward Spiral, and I asked Mr. Diggy to jump in there. Did you listen to the Downward Spiral, sir?
No, I haven't listened to it yet. No.
It's a
good record.
It's a great record, but it's industrial and it's loud and it's thumping, but there's also really interesting instrumental stuff in it. Pianos that come out of nowhere, light guitar work that feathers the end of tracks. It's dense and really well organized musically, and the reason I mentioned it to her is because there's no one ever mistakes anyone for Nine Inch Nails, right? Like that was one of the cool things about 90s rock. We were talking about like how rock has kind of lost its distinctness.
Yeah.
And so I remember I worked in a kitchen as a dishwasher, and the cook used to put on music and ask me to identify it. I could identify Primus in 2 notes. I know exactly what Primus sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't sound like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing about Nine Inch Nails. It was its own thing. It was clearly outside of the mainstream. Everybody respected it, but it was its own vibe. But I listened to Downward Spiral, and the difference is there's a little bit of Kanye in Trent Reznor. There's a little bit of the showman. There's some lyrics in there where he's like, I just want to fuck the whole world. He's just shocking people and having a good time, and that's partially why people didn't really get that offended by it, because they didn't really believe he meant much of it. He was painting with the colors and enjoying it, and he was the template for Marilyn Manson and all that.
And that's interesting. It like going back to like swagger and stuff, like Trent Reznor like was going for it, like post Pretty Hate Machine and into Downward Spiral, and then I think was like, you know, it took off, and Marilyn Manson stuff obviously took off too. And then, you know, I think he found himself and mellowed out a little bit and is the Trent Reznor we know today. But to go back and listen to the Downward Spiral is to listen to an artist kind of finding himself and having the kind of balls to go big.
Right. And that's what stuck out to me, because I was listening to Closer, which is just a perfect song. And I was like, man, King Krule is like his closer away from being at this level.
I can understand that. I can understand that, like, he is just a slight turn in his sound could potentially really break open and get a lot of different listeners and fans on board.
And
the right kind of arrangement of the pieces that he uses, if he found that kind of like magic recipe, it really could.
I mean,
it could connect.
If you look at the history of music, the singles charts and the album charts have always been worlds away. Going back to like Elvis ruling the singles charts, Sinatra ruling the album charts, and no Sinatra song on the singles charts. No Elvis album on the album charts. Just two entirely different bases of people. Mm-hmm. People like full experiences, people that just want a song, you know? And there's a part of me that feels like if you're a great album guy, you should be working on your singles. And if you're a great singles artist, you should be working on your album.
It's true.
Is that weird?
No. I mean, I feel like country used to be notorious for that. Like there'd be 3 singles and then just filler. And so, you know, you'd get your hits, but then people would buy the album and they wouldn't stay on board because it's like your albums suck. Like I'm only in it for the singles. I'll wait for the greatest hits record. But the album artists, of course, end up having longer careers because they, you know what I mean? People are on board for the whole experience and are looking to see what next full piece you put out rather than just the next 3 minutes that catch you.
Yeah, I mean, remember, K. Diggy, when you first heard the Randy Newman stuff. If you knew that back in like 74, they can't tell you shit when he comes out with Toy Story. You're like, I don't care, man. That dude's a warrior. You know what I mean? You can't tell about it. Like, he was fighting this when you weren't. He was touring down south making fun of him and getting shit thrown at him. You know what I mean? Like, he's the real deal. So if you establish one of those careers, Tom Waits, Randy Newman, that kind of stuff, where your albums are so tight, like, you can have, 20, 30 years in the game. Easy. Like, because you just keep following your vision.
Well, that sounds primarily what rock is right now. Didn't Bruce Springsteen have like an album come out last year?
He did, and it was like a Sturgill Simpson album of sorts. Yeah. It was odd, yeah.
But when did he came out when was his first album out? Like the late 70s, 80s, right?
Had to be it was 70s. Yeah. The 75 was Born to Run, right? And and that was third. Yeah, so that was.
It's interesting to me because you really only see like that longevity. Because I was thinking about that today. Like, I was kind of thinking about what the problem with rock is now. Why it's kind of like, I don't want to say dead because that's what everyone's saying, but like, kind of like asleep or whatever. And I think like. I just thought like a lot of these guys like Bruce Springsteen, he dropped an album in the 70s and then he dropped an album here in the 2019. What is that? Like 50? No, that's like 40.
It's almost 50 years.
Almost 50 years. Like
early 70s to 20, almost 2020. Yeah.
Look at hip hop. look at hip hop rap. Most of the rappers who dropped albums in the 90s, you haven't heard from them again. Or like they haven't dropped a project.
And Springsteen had vision along the way, right? Like when Two Live Crew wanted to authorize Banned in the USA to sample Born in the USA, he gave that to him. He said, sure.
Yeah.
Like he saw the wave. Like he was like, yeah, I see it. I'm good. And that takes vision. So Springsteen is an example of a guy who has played the singles and album games perfectly.
Yep.
But it took him a second to get to he was making the albums, and then he understood I gotta have some singles.
Yes, he had to become a singles guy. A lot of people don't know that. Like, that there aren't a lot of singles in the earlier albums.
What's the single on Darkness,
Yeah, good point. Good point.
It's a great album.
Great album. But yeah, and I was telling Mr. Diggy that the last great rock star album, like kind of the rock star album, is an album that doesn't care about any of the inhibiting factors in the world, right? It's not neurotic. It's not asking you to like it, it's steamrolling. To me, it's El Camino by the Black Keys.
Black Keys.
Like Gold on the Ceiling. I mean, we're just going ham. This is full-on car commercial music. Fuck you, plowing forward. And I think that's the last one I remember like that, right? Do you have a last world-shaping rock album that you recall?
Not anything that was that like charted like that, but also didn't have people screaming "sell out." And maybe it did, but who cares? You know what I mean? I think that's probably one of the last rock albums that made any sort of impact.
Wow.
And even the Black Keys, like after that, couldn't follow that up.
No.
I mean, because I always associate rock, and it's very hard for me to get like how would you define? Let me ask you guys this: like, what is the definition of rock music?
Guitar, bass, drums, that sort of just stripped down sound.
Okay. Because I mean, I think what's made it difficult is, I think a lot of hip hop could be considered rock music. Like, when I think of rock albums, and I was listening to this album today, I think Kendrick Lamar, and I don't know if this may be controversial or not, but I think the biggest rock star in the world is Kendrick Lamar.
I mean, I think it's Beyonce. I mean, I think it's, when you talk about rock stars, to me, that's someone who takes the air out of the room, right? Beyonce comes out in the Super Bowl and everybody's like, oh shit, what's gonna happen, right? And I think, and the next day everyone's like, did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? And there are Beyonce lyrics people say that are controversial that are not. Like, they're just say it in a concerned way. They're just like, she said she keeps hot sauce in her purse. Okay. I mean, you're a rock star when people are like flipping out for no reason like that. It's like, I told you, Diggy, about trying to watch David Bowie documentaries and it just being a bunch of old English people telling me how weird his boots were. I don't fucking care. Like, it was.
Yeah, the problem with rock is that it has no identity. The stuff is either throwback, like Black Keys or Queens of the Stone Age or something like that, something that harkens back to like the classic rock age, or is just straight up pop music. And even rock fans wouldn't consider rock, like Maroon 5 and Imagine Dragons and shit like that. And then the indie stuff is too concerned with being cool and critically appreciated to try and make that leap into the popular realm of things. They're too afraid of like being like, there's this weird thing in rock where no one wants to be a sellout, but in the current age you have to sell in order to make any sort of difference. So
wow,
you know what I mean? Like, I think rock kind of has to like let go of its fear of selling out and just if there are artists who are rock based who want to go for it, they just got to go for it. But I don't think anybody's going for it because I don't think anybody knows what to do, and that's why hip hop and R&B stars are the current rock stars, because they're able to just have that fuck it attitude and deliver on it.
And one of the things we talked about is that there's a difference between somebody selling out, which is like a cold-hearted transition, right? And someone who just likes this shit.
Well, back to the weekend.
I was at a Nathaniel Ratliff and the Night Sweats concert. I should have put on the hat. And I was standing next to this really intelligent dude, big, great friend of mine, and he looks at me and goes, is he fucking real with this shit? Is this fucking real? like he's good at this. Is this really who this dude is? Like, and he was like singing this kind of rock R&B. He signed to Stax Records. He signed to the record label Otis Redding was signed to. Like, he's weird. He's at a weird impasse, and he's just like gently strumming this guitar and singing this weird thing. And I go, oh, this is him. This is just a crazy dude from like Memphis who grew up on fucking Mustang Sally and the Allman Brothers. You know what I mean? And like doesn't see the fucking difference. And now he's made this pop mixture, but it's what he would have been doing anyway. He likes to drink to this music.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you bring up something like that, because I think that might be the what may be considered rock these days, like that kind of hybrid. An artist like that, and even like, oh gosh, I'm not even going to be able to name another one, but like in that kind of R&B influenced Southern bluesier sound that rock traditionalists are going to be like, oh, that's not rock. You know what I mean? Like for a local radio station, it's something not that wouldn't be on CYY, it'd be on 98.9. But that 98.9 stuff sells way more than the stuff that's on CYY these days. Yeah. They're the ones that are having the like concerts, festival music. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not at jam band, but it's lighter. And I think that, people are afraid to necessarily call it rock, but it's probably, kind of similar to like the California Southern soft rock stuff, like the Eagles or Fleetwood Mac, which if you asked people, would you consider that rock?
Yeah, I mean, my whole life, people were calling my Pink Floyd sellouts, like my whole life. Like, and once I dug in, I was like, no, these guys were insane. They really wanted to test the limits of time and space in their fucking music, which seems like a terrible idea, but I'm glad somebody did it so we could see what it looked like. And so you have to kind of get in the head of the people making the music and go, that's what Trey wanted to say. They didn't sell out. Green Day, this is what Trey wanted to say. Like, well,
it's funny because like the Ooze came out in 2018.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yep.
So it's interesting how much growth there's been and like a decision-making ability in just 2 years, or probably even closer to like a year and a half.
And it's not like you hear the machine grabbing him up and refashioning it, like
at all.
You're not.
But he is cleaning up the edges for sure.
Yeah.
And it's growth. It's just like growth and wanting to polish your shit, learning from your shit. And that was one of the things I loved about going through Krule's discography is they're all different. All the albums are vastly different.
Yeah.
And he's always different. And it's one of the things that another Jay-Z reference. Fuck. It's one of the reasons that people loved hearing Jay-Z is they love going back and hearing kind of outdated things that he's done, like shouting at people he doesn't fuck with anymore. Being like, oh, back in '99, it was different. So it's where you are right now, and it's not perfect, but it's it's great. It's great to have. So,
Absolutely.
Yep, I think he's got his head in the right sort of game, right direction, and it'll be interesting to see what comes next. It's exciting to hear an album and say, okay, let's see where this dude's at in 2 years.
Yeah.
it kind of feels like he's daring the audience to come to him.
Definitely.
That's a good point.
He's not gonna give you the single that galvanizes the world and that lets everybody, oh, I get it now, and he's my new guy. He's gonna make you come to him, and while he's making his stuff.
Yeah, and eventually you'll be able to see it and hear it his way.
Good deal.
Yeah.
So, K Diggy,
Yeah.
read you some nicknames for King Krule. You tell me who your favorite is. He's also known as Zoo Kid, DJ JD Sports, Edgar the Beatmaker, Edgar the Breath Taker, Lank Slacks, The Return of Pimp Shrimp.
That winner.
It had me very excited, and it's a great bunch of names, to be honest. And I wanted to create some additional nicknames for him if he wants to pick up, release albums under these names. So here's what I got. Lord Bummer, Muttley the Malevolent, Dread Phantom,
Like that one.
DJ Bad News, Doldrums,
Ooh, okay.
and this Murky Dismal.
I like that one.
Murky Dismal is actually the bad guy in Rainbow Bright. So he like sucked the colors out of the world.
That sounds like a pretty fitting alias.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Watch out. He may actually use that. You
could be Murky Dismal. You could be. So couple recommendations. Now, to be clear, when I launched into this, I am very nerdy. I am very obsessive with this stuff. So I like to really go into it. And I knew I'm going to be listening to a lot of King Krule. I don't want to be mean to my family. I got to find a counter album, an antidote album for this album. I went through a lot of possibles, right? I went through ZZ Top, Grilio or whatever, didn't work. The Upsetters, Lee Scratch Perry and the Upsetters, Super Ape, 1976, close, but not the Antidote album. The Antidote album, to balance this out, was from 1999, and it's called I Am Shelby Lynn by Shelby Lynn. And it is a beautiful album. You know this from working your record store days, Kyle?
Me? Yeah, I know that album. Sorry.
She sounds familiar.
She won Best New Artist for that album, and it was like her 5th record.
Yes, she was like 13 years in the game and won Best New Artist.
Yeah.
Right.
What was the single? Was there a big single?
I don't know single. But it's
off the top of my head, I do not know, but she definitely followed that album up with a Glenn Ballard obvious sellout sort of record, and basically never reached the peak. It was a classic case of Best New Artist curse.
And so, but I Am Shelby Lynn is very like dusty and Memphis. Like it's this perfect mixture of R&B influence, country music, pop influence, very just beautiful, warm, good songwriting, gorgeous voice. Definitely a great Antidote album if you're looking for it.
You're going to make me revisit that.
Yeah, I'm going to take a listen.
And I'm going to take my claim. You guys can read my review on this. One of the we talked about distinct voices, and hip-hop is full of really cool, weird, distinct voices and distinct things happening. Experiments happen all over the place that are super exciting. And my recent favorite, I don't know if you've listened to it yet, K Diggy, but it's called Eastern Medicine, Western Illness. It's by DJ Preservation,
Mhm.
who has produced for and toured with Mos Def and has produced for Ka, and he's a big New York Underground scene guy. And he pulled all of his friends together. Ka helped him pull people together, and he got Billy Woods, Rock Marciano, Ka, AG from Digging in the Crates crew. What he did was he went to Hong Kong and he pulled all Hong Kong sourced music, Hong Kong based samples and sounds, and made and constructed these like boom bap Hong Kong beats and then gave them to these hardcore underground artists. So you're hearing these kind of chimes and chanting voices, and then like the hard-nosed New York rapper comes in and cleans it up. It's super fun. Did you listen to it yet, Diggy?
No, I have not listened to that one yet either.
It's a
man.
treat.
I
It's a treat.
got a lot of work I need to do.
I've been all over it, but it was just really fun and exciting, and it's one of the things that I love about hip hop. That hip hop incorporates and opens up and empowers music from different parts of the world. It bridges the gap. It's DJ Preservation teaching us knuckleheads about this music that we don't know about.
Yeah.
While we listen to our favorites drop bars. You know what I mean? And he dedicated it to the people of Hong Kong, and it was just really cool and a fun experiment that you get to do when you're part of a vibrant genre and not running in place. Another Led Zeppelin album. That would, by the way, if I could take one influence away from rock music and say you can't use this anymore, Led Zeppelin would be it. You don't get
Interesting.
You don't get it anymore. Do something else.
Can Led Zeppelin still influence some hip hop?
Let Led Zeppelin rest. Kyle, what would you take away if you were like, you guys can't do this sound anymore?
From rock?
Yep.
Probably either the Doors or like AC/DC. Even though I've grown to have an appreciation for AC/DC, I got a real problem with the Doors.
Fair. In hip hop, I can answer the hip hop question. It's reggae.
Yeah.
You don't
Take reggae out of hip hop?
You can't do it. KRS-One can do it? Sure. Yes, he can. I do not want to hear your reggae voice. No. It's not what I want. You know? From Atlanta, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. It's weird. What do you do? And it's always one song. There's one reggae song amidst these tracks. It's okay,
Fair.
It's true.
wrong. Like, I like reggae, man. I've listened to reggae and gotten into stuff, but don't go guest starring in other people's genres, kicking out and coming back in, and you sound like Fred Durst rapping. That's what I'm saying. You know, that's what you sound like. So that's where I am right now. And wash your hands, people. Yell at people on social media if you feel like.
Or delete your platforms. That's what I've been doing.
It comes apart at the seams. It's great. Are you doing a live show? You're doing live shows?
Yeah, I'm doing a live thing on Instagram tomorrow, which is June 3rd.
And you are regularly doing them. This is like a regular thing.
I don't know. I keep quitting and then deciding to come back. I don't know.
What's your handle? Make sure you give your
At KGFREEZE. At KGFREEZE.
Follow the Instagram them live. Hopefully he says controversial things.
I plan on it.
Tell people that he says controversial things so they check into him. You can get some of those streaming pennies. Thank you for being the first guest to honor State of the Game.
Hey, thanks for the invite.
Stay
Yeah,
safe,
man.
everybody.
Great chatting with you guys.